Ladies and gentlemen, last week we accomplished together what we could not individually do. We successfully tabled Rule 71 requests on the entire Migration Pact. In order to continue our cooperation, we met today to establish the Cross-Party Migration Policy Group, and we will campaign in the member states against an open borders migration pact and the European Parliament's left-wing version of the Migration Pact. We will improve cooperation between governing parties that oppose the proposal and those parties that support governments or are in opposition in other countries. We will write concrete proposals for legislative texts that can be introduced in future negotiations. A concrete example: on Friday, the Swedish Migration Minister Malmö Stenagård on public television stated this, and I quote, "I can guarantee the Sweden Democrats that it will not be the agreement reached by the European Parliament." End quote. The members of the Cross-Party Migration Policy Group will do everything they can to stop this left-wing compromise of the European Parliament. We will assist the Swedish Migration Minister in what she said by gathering support in the Council to declare the European Parliament compromise dead. At our first meeting earlier today, we agreed on the main dangers of the Migration Pact, in particular enforced or mandatory quotas and the power transfer from member states to Brussels. We discussed the need for raising awareness around Europe of European campaigns in third countries to deter migration, the option of stopping migrant smugglers' business models by escorting the boats back to their port of origin, the Australian model of third country centres where asylum is processed and successful applicants get their future residency. This is similar to the Danish and UK government's agreement with Rwanda. We also discussed the Australian model of permanently banning anyone that tries to enter illegally. And finally, we discussed the possibility of giving freedom from the Migration Pact to any member state that secures a Denmark-style justice and home affairs opt-out in the future. So, in conclusion, we believe that we have a good chance to stop the European Parliament proposal as it stands and its main mandatory quotas and to produce something much, much better in the Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Gilles Le Breton.
Okay. Mesdames, Messieurs, la politique migratoire se règle désormais à Bruxelles et non dans les États membres. La preuve en est fournie par le pacte Asile et Migration, proposé par la Commission en 2020 et qui vient d'être renvoyé en trilogue par le Parlement européen le 20 avril, malgré nos efforts communs pour nous y opposer. La situation est grave, car ce pacte est un véritable plan de submersion migratoire de l'Europe. D'une part, il organise une politique d'accueil des migrants illégaux. Il procède à la répartition autoritaire entre les États de l'Union, dont la France, de ceux qui ont traversé la Méditerranée. D'autre part, il crée des voies légales d'immigration qui seront de véritables autoroutes de l'immigration qui faciliteront notre submersion. Je suis venu aujourd'hui vous dire clairement, au nom de mon parti, que nous ne voulons pas de cette politique suicidaire. Une autre politique est possible, qui consiste à traiter le problème de l'immigration à la source. On devrait notamment conditionner systématiquement le versement de l'aide au développement à l'engagement des États bénéficiaires de reprendre leurs migrants illégaux quand on les refoule. On devrait aussi développer une politique de traitement des demandes d'asile à l'extérieur de l'Union et non à l'intérieur. Enfin, il est nécessaire de renforcer la protection de nos frontières extérieures. La civilisation européenne est en danger. Nous avons la volonté de la sauver.
Thank you. Balázs Hidvégi.
Yes, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I'd like to say, first of all, that Hungary has shown over the past few years that borders can be protected if there is a political will to do so. We need the same thing at a European level. We need a return to legality and the respect of existing laws. And those who break the law will have to face consequences. That is to say, those who come illegally into Europe must be returned to where they came from without any delay. Also, efforts to protect European borders, including border fences, the building and maintenance of border fences, are a way to show solidarity towards our European brethren. And those efforts must be also supported at the European level, including European funding for border fences and border protection efforts. Also, it needs to be stopped that border guards, Frontex, and efforts to protect the border are attacked. We need to stop harassing border guards. That's just not a possibility. The European Parliament's position as it stands on migration is disastrous and unacceptable. It will not solve the migration problem. It will further create difficulties, and it will make an already bad situation worse. This way we cannot stop tragedies in the Mediterranean or elsewhere. We are creating, with the European Parliament's proposal, further pull factor, further illegality, and that cannot be tolerated. So we are calling on the Council at the upcoming negotiations to respect these principles and return to legality in Europe and return to consequences if somebody breaks the law. We need a fundamentally new European approach, and we need to respect these proposals. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Jorge Buxado.
Thank you. I will speak in Spanish. Las fronteras son un elemento esencial, constitutivo de las naciones y de los Estados miembros. Y, por tanto, las naciones son un elemento esencial y constitutivo de la Unión Europea. Segunda idea, la sostenibilidad económica de los modernos y costosos estados del bienestar, del sistema de ayudas sociales, del sistema de desempleo, de los sistemas de pensiones, dependen, por encima de todo, para el futuro de Europa, del control de la inmigración ilegal, incluso muchísimo más allá de todas las políticas de la sostenibilidad ambiental. Tercero, el pacto de asilo e inmigración que se plantea por este Parlamento parte del principio de fronteras abiertas, y las fronteras abiertas han sido siempre un fracaso cuando se ha intentado. La promoción del multiculturalismo lleva al colapso a nuestras ciudades y a nuestros barrios. Por eso queremos un pacto de asilo que tenga tres líneas fundamentales: actuaciones de prevención de la inmigración ilegal, lucha contra las mafias, protección de las fronteras, reforzamiento de la actividad policial en el control de las fronteras, y tercero, por supuesto, que todo el escrutinio de aquellos que quieran entrar en territorio europeo se haga fuera del territorio de la Unión Europea. Creo que es un compromiso muy claro, pero no es un compromiso político, y con esto concluyo, de los partidos que estamos aquí, sino que creo que representamos la voz de millones de europeos que están al margen de lo que se está decidiendo por las élites de Bruselas. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Bernard Zimniuk.
Thank you very much. To see all the problems, we have to go a couple of years back. And I remember on the very famous Gallup study a couple of years before, where they are reporting in this study about around about 70 million people they are willing to leave their country in southern sub-Sahara, just only this part of the world. We are not talking about Middle East, we are not talking about Afghanistan and other hot spots. This means this is a huge threat for our Europe. And the European Union, the answer was to establish 2020 in secret a kind of a plan that names is the Pact on Migration and Asylum. we discovered this and we are warning about it. We are now analyze the pact, what is the effect on the European population, on the European system, on the European nations. And this is the result. We have made a study, but it was not noticed by the press. We tried to do our very, very best. So the situation is now that we are on a situation where we are now implement this kind of pact here in Europe, and the disadvantage of the people and disadvantage of the nation. Europe tries to centralize and not to solve a problem, to increase a problem on the burden for our nations. And this is the result. We made here not fixed on a fraction. So some interested member of parliaments reported about in their countries what does it mean, this mass migration. And this is frightening. Please take a note about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom van der Driesje.
Now, the promise of the European integration was to abolish internal borders and thereby protect the external borders. You cannot have safety for your citizens without protection of your borders. And I think it's the duty of every politician to aim for this goal. This is why we got elected in the first place. Now, the asylum crisis has been raging for years on our countries. And as in every crisis, we can look back at the banking crisis, the euro crisis, the asylum crisis from 2015, COVID crisis and so on. The solution of the European elite is always exactly the same. Ever more European Union, ever more bureaucrats, ever more centralized power, ever less democratic power by nation states. Now, if you look at the EU Migration Pact, it has two basic components. One is on migration, the other is on asylum. If you look at what Commissioner Johansson said about the aim of this pact, literally, we need migration. And Commissioner Jourova added to that, why do we need migration, according to her? Because we face denatality in Europe. So it is a plan constructed to force migration in Europe to repopulate Europe. They are talking about bringing in millions per year, high-skilled, low-skilled labor. Flanders, my country, is by no means an immigration country. We have the highest population density, so we do not need more migration. I think we need to solve our problems we already have with migrations. Now, on asylum, asylum is misused as a gateway for migration. It is basically a business model for human smugglers. And this business model is based on a principle that once you set one foot in Europe, you get access to any social and financial right that our citizens have and where they pay taxes for. This is not a sustainable model, and I think we need to redefine the asylum principle, because I do think it's a valuable principle. People who are fleeing war, for example, they get refuge. And I think a basic model shift is necessary based on certain principles, and one is that the right to asylum does not mean the right to stay somewhere. So these are two different concepts. Therefore, asylum should by definition be in a region of origin. And thirdly, I think we must focus on dismantling the criminal networks who are involved in this illegal migration, human trafficking, as well on the part of the human traffickers themselves, as on the support networks of NGOs and financial supporters. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian Terres.
Thank you. This EU Migration Pact is a threat to the sovereignty and security of every EU member state, and it will undermine furthermore the cohesion among the people of Europe. The supporters of this irrational migration pact claim that Europe needs more workers. Nobody is denying that we need more workers, but such workers must come in Europe through legal and not illegal channels. The strong pact does not simply deny the problem of illegal immigration, but it is also undermining and denying the lawful and natural right of every sovereign state to defend its borders. It is easy for these bureaucrats in Brussels to impose on us utopian solutions. But at the end of the day, it is up to us, to each one of us, to defend our borders, to defend our nations, and nevertheless to defend our rights. And is it important, nevertheless, for the people of Europe to understand what is happening here? We have a majority in this parliament who clearly do not care about our rights. My call to all of them is to replace this political majority before they replace all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Angel Jambaski.
Thank you, dear all. Yes, we are members of European Parliament from different political groups, and we are very much against the idea of open borders. We recognize this as a threat for our families, for our values, for our way of life. So we will advocate, we will campaign to have a strong border, strong external border, because we need to defend, as I said, our societies. We have a good experience building this wall in Bulgaria and achieving at least almost zero illegal migration. And let me be very clear here, there is no irregular migration. We can recognize the left is always trying to shift the naming, the wording, and to say, oh, this is regular, irregular. No, no. If you are trying to cross the green border, you are violating our penal code, and you need to be prosecuted, and you need to be sent back in your country. So we will try to have our borders, to build strong border with defense outside the Europe, and to keep our societies as we like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kozma Zlotowski.
Yes, Kozma Zlotowski from Poland, ECR. Well, having heard all this, it was told here, and applauding it, I'd like to pay attention on the different aspect of illegal migration. The illegal migration, its experience of Poland and of Lithuania can be a kind of weapon, can be an instrument of war. We had an invasion caused by Russia, and with the migrants coming from Middle East or Far East, and those people were transported to Belarus to go illegally to the Polish and Lithuanian border. It is another instrument of war, and more or less, hopefully less, we are at war. Thank you.